All right, welcome back to another live stream, ladies and gents. We are back. Bear with me while I figure out the camera situation. And yeah, we're good. We're in. This is the Bitcoin analysis show live every Friday. I've got some very exciting updates for you all in this live stream today, especially because of this recent volatility on Bitcoin. So if we're excited for all of that, let's smash up those likes. As you are coming in, thank you all for tuning in. And as usual, if you enjoy my stuff, you want to see more of me, you're going to find the link to my YouTube channel in the description below, or you can get more of me, my live streams, my updates, and just much more in-depth content. So let's get into this because this has been a very exciting market. We had that really nice deviation below the $60,000 price area. It ended up forming another deviation up here beyond our local top before at 65K, and now everybody is screwed. If you were long, you were screwed. If you were short, you were screwed. And now we are back at the bottom of the range. And the first thing I want to do, as usual, is just make sure that I'm not being dramatic about anything. I'm very interested in taking note of our support ranges and understanding that if we fall down to an area of support, that is where bounces tend to happen. And if you employed this mindset, for this general support range, and the reason I'm saying range is because I want to include this wick. Then let's just give it a count just to put things into perspective. How many times you would have successfully caught a bounce over here? So we're already up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The seventh one failed. 8, and we're on number 9. So we're not going to count number 9, obviously, because there's been no resolution yet. But, out of 8 situations, you're only failing once if you anticipate support in this range. However, if you consider how bearish people became at the bottom at each of these times, people were not bullish at any of these occasions here. This is where people got very scared. If anything, this is where people were most confident. Interestingly enough, but that really tells you a lot about how people have it the wrong way around, and how if you want to make money, you cannot make those kinds of mistakes. They are not going to serve you, and they're not going to make you money. So before we do get dramatic, like I said, support is where bounces happen, and you would have been making a good amount of money if you operated off that principle there. So, very important to point that out. However, what we've done now is not good. And the reason I don't think it's good is because we've had our deviation up here, and we've managed to pull it back. And from low to high, we had a pretty decent 15% rally. It was fairly quick, and it went up to a pretty good level. And importantly, we overcame key areas of resistance like this sideways range here at 64.7. So from those perspectives, Bitcoin had a lot going in its favor. Not only that, I like to look at the S&P 500 as a, kind of traditional finance look as well. And the S&P 500 has moved up pretty well. If we measure this from, let's say, the 19th of April up to the present day, let's take a look at where Bitcoin has been, within the same kind of time frame. The 19th of April, right around here, to the present day, we're now actually just losing this wick right here live. So this is quite an important show right now. Look at that. Yeah, that's the dump. That's the dump. And this is, what, I'm going to cut to this part now because, the market is moving faster than me. What I wanted to say about this price range here is that we managed to punch in a low, and if you lose this low, it's lights out for Bitcoin as far as I'm concerned. This is exactly what I was talking about extensively on my YouTube channel in my most recent video, and the video which just went live a few minutes ago. It is this concept of if you manage to punch in a low like this and you lose it, you're in trouble. And we are seeing look at that. We're seeing the result of that right in front of us right now. Even Ghost is unhappy about it down there. And the thing about this is like I said, we are still in a support range, so I don't want to be the one that's getting carried away by things like this. I want to make sure that I'm retaining a calm, cool head with this kind of price action. But at the very same time, if you do punch in a low like this and then you fall below it, what the market is telling you is that this was not enough and we need to grab liquidity at an even lower level. And the reason this is important is because of this deviation. This is kind of the point I was making before the drop happened, which is that when you form a deviation like this and you start moving up to higher levels, it sends a really bad message if you come back down into the zone again, where that deviation happens. And the reason it sends a bad message is purely because you've already had your shot. You've already had your chance to sweep liquidity down here, which means that if you're returning, this wasn't enough. That's the message that this tells you, right? Like if you're returning back down to, here's another example. We managed to grab some liquidity here, but it wasn't enough and the market came back down, so we dropped even lower. The next time we dropped lower still, but only marginally, and none of these occasions were enough of a liquidity grab, so we had to fall even lower than that. Now we're seeing the same thing happen on a smaller time frame, and to me, it probably means that the liquidity below this 56K range needs to get tapped. That's what I'm seeing from that particular perspective. If we end up losing this zone of support, so that's something I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye out for. I want to see if I can look at the comments because there may be some cool comments here in the live chat. If anyone does have questions and so on, please do drop them as well. 62K is acting like a magnet from Maxi Lopez. Let's take a look at that 62K range. Let's just drop a nice horizontal line right there. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to see the price kind of bounce back up there. We've already seen a nice bounce starting to produce itself on this chart right now. So if we manage to hold these kind of levels, then this just becomes, like a mini swing failure pattern. And then we're kind of back in business. We can start looking at rallying higher. I don't know, and I'm not optimistic, to be honest. If we take a very, very local fixed range volume profile, we're going to see that there is a nice little spike right here of volume being traded. And that's if we measure it from all the way down here. But if we measure it with much more local price action, it is even worse. And there is just a, fairly decent amount of resistance up ahead for this market, which is going to have to overcome. And it's going to have to overcome this resistance in, I think, quite a bearish, nasty climate right now. So, it's not going to be particularly easy, I think, for Bitcoin to, overcome some of these next bits of resistance. Tone Vase in the chat. Yeah, it's not looking good. Sebastian, let's go Bitcoin, stop playing with us. We'll be back to 64K in just about 3 days. I like the confidence there, Vishal. Vishal, you are behaving, as you would expect at a support level. And I think this is something that's really strong that I want to keep reiterating because people do lose, they do lose focus of this. But it's like I said at the very beginning of this live stream, not only would you have made a lot of money if you were buying at these support ranges, if you were paying attention to sentiment, you also would have noticed that people were the most scared at these lows, right? So it pays to be confident and bullish at support levels, but at the same time, for me, one of the other things that I like to look at is, the strength that we are responding to a support level with, and one of the key kind of, how do I say, one of the key examples of this that I've given is how quickly the market has recovered off some of these support bounces, and how, big they actually ended up becoming, right? And so if we take a look at this one here, you're looking at within less than a day, within about half a day, the price is up by 14%. And, it's the same thing here. Very, very quick reactions here. Within just under a day, we're up by 12%. But we're getting, very noticeably weaker after that. We're only up by 7% on this occasion. And on this occasion here, we're up by, again, within the same time frame, by 2%, right? So our support bounces have clearly gotten smaller and they've clearly gotten slower. And those two factors combined definitely tell you that, yes, support is where you get bullish. However, we're not responding to our support with the same level of vigor, with the same level of strength that we were before, and that's why I think this is definitely some cause for concern. Now, if the support level does behave as support and we end up moving higher from here, I'm going to be looking at, 62K is a good price range. For me, I'm more interested in the 63.5 range. If we take a look at this chart that I've had drawn out right here, I had a really nice invalidation line for Bitcoin, which we did not manage to get above. And I basically said that if Bitcoin can get above this line, we're super bullish, and I'll show you why in just a second. But if we can't, then, we're probably going to be in a bit of trouble. So that's kind of exactly what ended up taking place here. And the reason I was able to draw that line was just very simply drawing, again, another fixed range volume profile, just to kind of see where a lot of that volume lies. And, it has changed a little bit now because of the price action, the recent developments. But we're still looking at, broadly speaking, a big spike taking place in terms of volume at this particular price range, stretching from about like 62 to 63 and a half, very, very clearly showing us that this is a big price range for Bitcoin, a very important price range that Bitcoin has to overcome. However, if Bitcoin can overcome it, then I think we're in a pretty good place. And I think what we've done then is we've managed to grab a lot of liquidity. And those of you that like, things like head and shoulders patterns, you're probably going to be excited by this because we would have formed a bad, ugly head and shoulders pattern. But the thing about head and shoulders patterns, and I don't like to use patterns like this, but the thing about them that I think is important is the characteristic, right? Like when you're saying head and shoulders pattern, you're using analysis which is very basic because you lack real skills as an analyst, and that's okay as long as you're upfront about it. But what head and shoulders represents is that you tag a low, and then you tag a lower low, and then you tag the same low again. And that's to say that, look, originally we didn't have the strength to hold that low, but then we gained the strength, which means we're in a stronger position now. And then it's a moonshot from there. That's what a head and shoulders represents in this case, or more specifically an inverse head and shoulders. And so, recovering above this level would be a good indication that we are, definitely coming at this market with a bit more strength now. And yeah, I would definitely be expecting that we hit that 67K area and even get higher, into the very low 70K range. And actually, I would anticipate from there that we break all-time highs. So this would be a very, very nice inverse head and shoulders, liquidity grab, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. The fact is that the bears are being given a massive chance to drive the market lower now, including a big deviation right here. And if they don't end up taking that chance, then they've lost it, and the ball is going to be back in the court of the bulls. So I think that's going to be something which I'd be very interested in watching out for as well. On the flip side, if Bitcoin does end up losing this area of support, we've got a couple interesting zones on this chart which are worth looking into. I don't know if this is going to show on screen. No, it doesn't show on screen. But what we have here is, for example, this low that we just punched in a few days ago, about 9 days ago, 1st of May. This low at 56K, also an important zone for the market where we could end up finding a little bit of support. There was definitely a very small amount of consolidation here, and then obviously a nice big reversal. I'm not relying on this level. I think that if we do lose this zone of support, then it's back down to the very low 50s. And of course, what I've been talking about for quite some time is that 44K would be my kind of absolute floor in terms of this particular bull market. And it would, of course, represent a beautiful, healthy 40% correction for Bitcoin if we did end up falling down to the $44,000 price level. It obviously lines up with a lot of interesting things, and it fits that, a lot of people have been kind of, banging the drum of the narrative of the ETFs. And, you guys know my opinion on it. I've been very, very vocal about how I just don't see how, the big guys who are, buying things through an ETF are going to make the little guy rich. It's almost never that way. And actually what tends to happen, and the analogy that I actually gave just now in the video that I just made was, in 2018, Jamie Dimon was coming in talking absolute shit about Bitcoin when Bitcoin was trading at the $6,000 price area. He was very, very nasty about Bitcoin and the blockchain space and everything like that. And then the price dropped by 50%. I traded this move. This was a beautiful move. Traded the next move up as well. Super happy with that. After he was talking crap about Bitcoin, we saw a big 50% drop in Bitcoin's value. And then on that subsequent rally up, it was later revealed that his bank was buying Bitcoin down here, And so what ended up happening was that they were instigating fear in the market during this, fearful time on the chart. They engineered a 50% drop, and then they were quietly buying while the price was stable, and they were only buying the Bitcoins that, other retail traders had bought way up here, for example. They were getting a discount on them, which means that two things happened. Number one, retail lost a lot of money, and number two, retail gave their Bitcoins to the already wealthy. The wealth transfer that we expect to see, not because it's nice, but because this is how the world works, is that money moves from the hands of the impatient into the patient, or alternatively, from the poor into the rich. That's just always how it's worked. It's always how it has worked, and it might change in the future, but it's not changing anytime soon. And so if that does end up happening, the only people that are going to be selling on these kind of drops will be retail. And I think that those bitcoins would probably be getting pulled back up. So it's still something that I would like to see. I don't know if we're going to get it, and I'm not going to hold my breath for it. But we're looking pretty, we're looking pretty shaky right now. And if it does end up dropping, then the thing we need to keep in mind is when you blast through an area like this, you're not establishing any resistance on the way up. So you can't expect any support on the way down. And it's the same thing in this range here. We just blasted straight through this range, no resistance on the way up. So naturally, we can't expect any support on the way back down as well. And by the way, if you're curious, it was the same thing back in 2021 as well. We take a look at the 52K area up to the 60K area here. It's a straight moonshot up. Dropping back down, it's a straight drop back down. Yeah, we take a little bit of a scenic route, a bit of a zigzag to get there, but it's a straight drop down. So we're looking at big moves here. Again, same thing, constantly producing itself off these price levels. So, and again, 44K up to the 52K range, just drop straight down, rise straight up. There are small exceptions like here, but generally speaking, you're just moving up in a straight line. Sometimes the straight line is has a 45-degree angle. Sometimes it has more of a 90-degree angle, but you are moving in a straight line. So I think that I don't have a reason to expect that to change right now. That's on the bearish side. On the bullish side, like I said, invalidation is going to be 63.5. Anything above that, and I think we're in a pretty good place from that particular perspective. So that's a lot of the analysis that I have to cover with you in this live stream today. Like I said, S&P 500 looking pretty good. I do believe that there is a good correlation between the S&P 500 and Bitcoin, generally speaking. However, recently it's not been working very well for Bitcoin. If the S&P 500 does end up reversing anytime soon, and yeah, there is some possibility for that because potential double top at the all-time high. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but if it does, then it's not a good thing for Bitcoin, right? I mean, put it this way. The factor which should have been bolstering Bitcoin up, lately hasn't been working for Bitcoin. And if this thing does start to reverse, then, you're already not in a good place, with Bitcoin here. So I'm going to be watching things to see how, things like sentiment look as well. I'm very interested in, fear and greed index hasn't updated quite yet. Obviously, we're going to see that update in about 8 hours from now. But, if you do start to see big polarized moves in any particular direction, that's going to be an interesting thing to watch out for. Right now, yes, support is behaving as support, so that's absolutely great. And I think that we are going to be stuck in a somewhat difficult position, anything kind of below 63.5 at this stage. But if we do manage to get above it, then it's going to be a very, very fun time. I think that's safe to say. So thank you all for watching this live stream today, ladies and gents, for our Friday show. I'm going to be back with you all on Monday. Obviously, if you have enjoyed this live stream, make sure that you are subscribed and that you've been hitting up the like button to support the Financial Summit channel. And if you want to get more of me, you know where to find me, linked below the like button in the description. You can find my YouTube channel. So thank you all, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.